Good evening, folks. So in today's late night video, I'm going to bring you along on the 10 parameter analysis model that I used to make my decision to move from Canada to Dubai. And maybe you can use the same model to make your decisions, although all the parameters are very subjective, so you would have to use the analysis tool for yourself and make your own decisions. But I thought it would be a good idea to bring you along on that journey step by step and show you how I used all the different parameters. And before you ask, no, the analysis has nothing to do with the swimming pool, and no, I'm not going to be doing Excel inside the pool. But hey, how else do you make a video that's entirely based on an Excel sheet a little more exciting than to do it beside a really beautiful pool? All right then, so let's get into it. So the first thing I've done here is that I have identified all the key metrics that one would use to evaluate such a move. And I've highlighted a few here. I think these should be common for everybody, but it is a subjective thing. So maybe some of these are not relevant to you and you can just take them out or just multiply them with 0. And you might want to add some of your own. So it really is a subjective thing, but I think this is a good start. So first I have put in the things that are relatively easy to quantify. So for example, vacation days, how close your friends or family are going to be, how much free time you're going to get every day, ease of travel, professional growth, barrier of language, or like how good you are with learning new languages. And then savings, this is a little bit of a complex calculation, but still it is quantifiable a little bit easier. And sorry, we've been invaded. And then there's a little more complex concepts a little later, like value of time and healthcare and education. So how to quantify that is a little bit more complex than the things that we've talked about before. All right, to save you a little bit of pain watching me do Excel, I have redone the sheet a little bit, and what I've done is I've added a baseline here. So this is the status of what these metrics are currently, and then I'm going to use that to normalize all the rest of the values so that your current status is always 1, and then anything that's better is going to be 1 point something, and anything that's worse is going to be less than 1. So coming to vacation days, the way you calculate it is you say, hey, this is the number of vacation days that a company would give in this jurisdiction, but then you also have to calculate or add to that the number of provincial and national holidays, because those are going to be different across different jurisdictions, and just calculate the whole sum of that. So for Canada, I've assumed that the basic vacation days that you get is 15, and you get a total of 9 holidays over the year, so the total number would be 24. And so here I've added 24, so that is the baseline for any province in Canada. If you were moving to another province within Canada, then that would still be 1. If you went to another country and assuming it is somewhere in Europe, you'll get 25 holidays, I think, from your company, from your employment, and then add to that, let's say, 7 national holidays. So that already brings you to 32. And so you can already see that you are going to be 33% better off if you move to Europe as far as vacation is concerned. And say another place gives you 28, and so that gives you a 1.16, right? Then coming to friends and family, now this one is a little bit different for everybody. It's very subjective, but essentially what I've tried to capture is when you move, one of the big issues is that you don't want to lose your friends and your family. And so what you do through this is you say, hey, here are 10 people that I wish I would meet at least twice or more over a year. So you pick those 10 different people and see where they are geographically, and then count how many of them you would be able to visit easily in a year in a specific geographic location. Now, if you are someone like me who has lived in many places and has friends all over, this actually kind of cancels out depending on wherever you go. You probably lose some access to some friends but gain access to others. If you are watching this video, you're probably somebody who's already moved and has family in different places, and so maybe considering a move is also giving you the benefit of being closer to family. But in any case, the way you could do this is like, for me, the baseline was among the 10 people that I wanted to meet, I could only meet 3 of them in a year easily. So for me, that's the baseline. And now let's say if I move to a new province and say this number rises to 4, then that gives me a 33% better chance of meeting friends and family. And then let's say in a different jurisdiction that becomes 5, so it's already 66% better. Let's say in another place I can't even meet 3 and there's only one person that's nearby, so then that percentage falls down to 76% worse off. And of course, not everyone is going to have the same priority for you. Maybe parents who really need you at a specific time, then maybe that is a higher priority. Maybe some very close friends, they're a higher priority. So it's possible to not have everybody as one in this equation, but it helps to kind of identify a certain number. For simplicity, I've identified 10, but you say, hey, there's 5 people that are really close to me and they are like highest priority. So you could do something like that depending on your subjective situation. Coming to free time, this one is quite simple in terms of you think about how many hours you have during the day that you are awake. So suppose you wake up at 7, you go to bed around 10, so that gives you roughly about 15 hours. And out of those 15 hours, 8 hours are spent doing whatever work you do, so that gives you about 7 hours for the rest of your life, right? So you take that as a baseline and you say, hey, in the current situation, I'll have 7 hours every day to be free and do things that I love. So something about a hobby or just spending time with your family and anything that you enjoy, right? One thing to remember here is that you also have to, additional to the work hours, you also have to add the hours you might spend in traffic, which might be different based on whatever geographical location you're at. So for instance, in my circumstance in Canada, my commute time was 0 because I was working from home. But for somebody who is, say, living a little bit outside the city and commuting downtown, they probably have to add 2 hours extra to their work hours. So from that perspective, say you went to, so my situation was I was in a remote work situation, and say I moved to a different province where I have to go to the office more. So then this 7 kind of becomes 5. So already I can see that I'm a bit worse off as far as free time is concerned. Say you go to a different country where, so suppose you go to Europe, then you probably have a little more time because the work hours are a little less. So instead of 7, say you have 8, and that shows you're 15% better off. Say you move to another place where it's even more workaholic, and so instead of 7, you have like 9, say, and so in that case, you're already, 9 is, would that be like work hours, so you reduce it from the free hours, so that's already like you're 30% worse off. Okay. And then coming to ease of travel. So initially we talked about how you get to your friends and family, but there's also, you want to be able to travel and enjoy the world and enjoy your vacation. And so to quantify this specific metric, what you do is you say, hey, here are 10 places that I really like to visit, or they are on my bucket list for the next, say, 5 years, right? And then you think about your current situation and say, how many of these places I can practically visit as far as my wallet is concerned and also my time. So suppose in your current situation, there's 3 of them that you can visit easily. And then if you go to a new province, say there's 4 of them that are easily accessible to you. And then say you go to somewhere in Europe where you have a lot of places that are more accessible to you and that are on your bucket list. So maybe this suddenly rises up to 7. So you say, wow, this is like double the percentage. It's like already 2.3 times better. And then you go somewhere else and you say, hey, here I have 5 of the places that I really want to visit. And so that is also one of the variable that you can put. Okay, so I've just added one more column that I forgot to add, and that is outdoor time, which is specifically dependent on the kind of weather you can expect in the whatever geographical location you're thinking about. So for me, in my where I was living in Canada, it was maybe 7 months out of 12 months a year. I could go outside and enjoy nature, and I could enjoy nature to the fullest because it was absolutely gorgeous and amazing. So I've put like the whole 7 months here as the baseline, and then say you move somewhere into a new province. So let's say you move to Ontario or Alberta, maybe this kind of becomes a bit less. Instead of 5, 7. It becomes something like 5. So you're a bit worse off in this situation. Let's say if you move to somewhere in Europe and it's maybe, I don't know if it's a little better in terms of being able to go outside. So say 8 months a year you can go outside. Maybe if you're thinking about like somewhere in the Middle East, maybe this kind of goes a little lower even, and you say, hey, only 4 months I can really go outside. Also factoring in the aspect that you probably don't have as much nature to enjoy in terms of rivers or mountains or greenery or those kind of things, if that's what you're into, right? So in that perspective, you can see, hey, I'm going to be like about 43% worse off if I move to like a place with only 4 months. Then the next one is a little bit difficult and very subjective, but this is about professional growth. I think it's for everyone to identify based on whatever their current circumstances are and also what they expect to have in the next location that they're considering. I would assume that everybody has most of these moves are also kind of coupled with some sort of a career step. So from that perspective, you could have an idea of like what your next professional growth is going to look like. One thing that I would recommend to consider is how many other professional people do you expect to be in that geography? So, for instance, if your current situation is someplace where there's a lot of people from your profession, and then the place you're moving to do not have as many, then that would also need to be factored into the professional growth aspect, right? So here I've just like taken a random like 6 here to your current situation, and then say you go to a different place and this becomes 8, and you're like, okay, I'm going to be a bit better off there. Say another place it becomes 5. I don't know, another place it becomes 7, something like that. So this one is really subjective, so I can't really give you a good methodology for quantifying it. Then it comes to language. So obviously, if you've been living in Canada for a while and you speak English, then this is like you have 10 out of 10. Maybe if you're going to somewhere in Europe, let's say you're moving to Portugal or whatever. Sorry, if you're moving to a different province, it's the same. But say if you're moving to Portugal or Spain or something, then you have to learn that new language. So there is that difficulty that comes with it. So you could say, hey, I'm going to give this a 6. And the one thing that I do want to highlight here is that some people probably enjoy the process of learning a new language. So, for instance, I have really enjoyed learning Japanese or learning German, for instance, or a little bit of Swedish. But that is not to suggest that it is not difficult to kind of get adapted and used to that language and all the barriers that it brings when you don't know those languages. So you could kind of factor in that aspect of being excited by learning a new language, but I would still say that factor in the difficulty that you would face in the start. And so this one, let's say I give it a 5, right? Now, the next few columns are a little bit more complex to calculate. But first, I'll go to people, and I think this is something that you can kind of just do a little bit of research about the society that you're moving to and see like how warm they are, how friendly they are. Just kind of get a general sense for it. So, for instance, for me, Canada is probably like top. So I've given it like 5, and I would imagine that it's the same for other provinces. Um, Maybe some really big cities might not be as much, but in general, I think Canada is really high there. And then, say you're moving somewhere in Europe, let's say you're, I'm not going to name any countries, but say there's a country that's not very friendly, say, like people are in general not very friendly, then you would say, hey, it's somewhere around like I'm losing 40%. I can't think of any other place that would be more friendly than Canada, so I think this one also I'll give it like a 4 maybe. So that one is a little easier. And then let's go back to savings. Okay, so savings is quite a complex calculation. You can't. I would suggest that you don't look at just salary comparison. So you don't say, hey, here I'm getting this much salary and here I'm getting this much salary. It does not work that way, because suppose you're living in a small town or like maybe a more affordable town somewhere, and then from there you move to San Francisco. Even if you get like a 50% jump in your salary, it's not going to cover your expenses, and your savings in the end are going to be really much more less than you were in your current situation. So here I've just generally like taken an amount of, let's say, like you can save 20,000 a year in your current circumstance. So you take that as a one, and then for if you're moving somewhere else and maybe this 20,000 becomes like 15,000, and you say, okay, I can't save as much as I'm saving here. Say you move to somewhere in Europe, and suppose the salaries are a bit less, and your saving kind of start to go a bit lower as well. So it's something like this. I don't know. You move to somewhere in the Middle East, and the salaries were high, or you went to the US and the salaries were high, and so your savings suddenly became like 30,000. I don't know, something like that. So you can actually, like, this is a math that you can do behind this evaluation. A website that I would recommend is called Numbeo. So you would take the amount of money that you would have to spend to have like equivalent lifestyle in the new place, and you would have a general understanding of, if you're moving with a job, you would know what the salary is. If you're moving without a job, but you kind of just have a general understanding of what the market looks like, so you can just plug in the salary, plug in the expenses, and then see what is the savings that you'll get. But this I would recommend, once again, that you compare savings, not pure salary. Okay, coming to education, once again, there's a lot of things that you have to define as far as like your kids' education is concerned. For me, I defined 5 different aspects that I thought I want my child to have in education. If you want more details on this, please write a comment, and then I'll do a little more detailed analysis on these. But say in another province, it's exactly the same. Maybe if you go to Europe, it's instead of 5, it's 7. I don't know. If you go to like another place where you have like private education and stuff, and maybe it's a little better. I don't know. So you kind of do this kind of comparisons. Coming to healthcare, this one is very difficult because on one end, I really like the fact that we pay taxes. That helps anybody who is in need of healthcare without having to worry about paying for that healthcare. So I count that as a plus for Canada. But at the same time, there's some other things that I identified in terms of parameters. So say, how long does it take to get a family doctor? How easily you can actually walk into a clinic if you suddenly need something? What if you need some specific procedure? How long does it take to actually get assessed? And then, like, one more aspect would be that if you have a specific condition already, then you would actually evaluate it based on that condition as well. So, from that perspective, let's say we rate your current situation in Canada to be 5. In another province, I wouldn't I wouldn't expect that much change. But let's say you move to Alberta, then in general, I think Alberta has a little better healthcare, so you would say 6. Say you move to somewhere in Europe where the healthcare was a little bit more better, I don't know. So you say 7. Say you move to somewhere in the Middle East where they have private healthcare and it's very easily accessible. So this, I would say, like maybe 9, something like that. And so that kind of gives also a good comparison of how the healthcare looks like. This one also needs a lot more in-depth analysis in terms of finding these differences and these values. So I would say identify like 5 parameters that you want to compare. I have told you mine, and you can also like have some subjective ones in there, and then do some research on the different jurisdictions, how they look like. I will eventually do individual videos on these more complex aspects. So savings, so in terms of like expenses, education, healthcare, and the people. Then from there on, there is this one parameter that I really want to highlight, which I actually use as a basis of a lot of decisions in my life. But essentially, you might have seen that I haven't started this analysis with money. I've started it with time. So the way you calculate value of time is you say, what is the threshold of money that I would pay someone to do something for me, um, if I had to. So suppose there is something that costs you like $40 or $38 an hour, right? And then you say, hey, if it's below $38 an hour, then I'll give it to someone else to do, because that my 1 hour I'll value it at about $38. And if it's above $38 and it takes me 1 hour to do, then maybe I'll do it myself, because it costs me more to offload that task to someone else and have 1 hour of my own. And the way I come up with this value is I would take a baseline, say like salary after taxes, not before taxes. So salary that you get in your pocket after taxes divided by the total number of working hours that you have in your day, in your year. So just from that division, you get the monetary value of 1 hour in your life, and calculating that value is fundamentally just dependent on how much salary you're getting after taxes. And so it's, you could, instead of value of time, you could just put here the total salary you're getting after taxes, and that would be the same comparison. But I just wanted to highlight this change of thinking and change of perspective, where you don't value things or you don't measure things purely in money. You actually measure them in how much time you have to spend to get that value. Okay, so it's should be 1. It's 0.99 because I was too lazy to put in the full decimal number, but it would be the same in these 2 jurisdictions, and maybe in here it's a little bit less. Say it's 35, and then say in another place it's like something like that. So that gives you the value of time. And then this number actually helps you decide what tasks you should offload as well. So that's why I really like this metric. Okay, so that was it for the entire analysis. And then in the end, you could just like probably do a summation of everything. And um, so with the summation, then you can have a really good sort of overview of which one comes out on the top, which one is kind of in the middle, or something like that. So here we clearly see that this row is pretty high. This one is not too far behind. But obviously, you don't have to give each column the same weightage. So you say this vacation days counts as one, but proximity to friends and family counts as 1.5, free time counts as 0.5, ease of travel counts as whatever, right? So depending on whichever metric here is more important to you, you give it a higher number. Whichever metric is less important to you, you give it a lower number. And then the summation can be done based on multiplying that column with its weightage. And then you can have a summation which is reflective of what is more important to you rather than each of these columns having the same weightage. I hope that made sense. Don't worry about copying any of this. If you need the Excel sheet, I will make it a bit better. I'll also add the weightage column in it so that it's easier to use. And just comment down below in the video so that I can just grant you access to the file. I'm not going to make it open, just so it's not just like out there open, but just comment down below and then I'll send you a link of the file so you can use it on your own. And then from here on, that was a very long video. I've never done a video like this before, but I sure did enjoy it because I really like analysis. But what I'll do from here on is that some of these complex ideas, so for example, healthcare and education and savings and professional growth and those kind of things, I'll do a little bit more deep dives into those, not just looking at an Excel sheet or a screen, but maybe going into the field and kind of giving you some examples. I think I'm going to really enjoy this series, so I hope you're enjoying it as well and you stuck with me to the end. But even if you didn't, I'll make sure that I put timestamps so you only have to watch the part that is relevant to you. And also feel free to watch this on higher speed if I'm talking too slow. Thank you so much for coming along. And although we are happy outdoors, but thank you so much for coming along for this analysis. And I'll see you again another time, another place. Always happy outdoors.